Hello, welcome back to the channel of Finances and Fiance. My name is Christine. This is Steven. We're both pharmacists and we own real estate together. So today's topic conversation is about our home buying experience. So we've come a long way. We've been looking for homes we looked for homes about a year or so before we bought this house. And it was quite a journey, wouldn't you say, Steven?
Yeah, I actually think it was a little bit less than a year because what was the limiting factor was I was commuting like 70 miles all the way to Lancaster.
We were also
Uh,
waiting for you to see if you got another job.
yeah, like it was crazy. I was driving like 70 miles each way from Santa Monica to Lancaster. Luckily, it was against traffic,
Yeah, I
but
don't know how you did
yeah, I
that.
mean, thanks to my Tesla,
That's
it
true.
drove me, but I drove my BMW into the ground because I was putting so much mileage. And then obviously you worked in like West LA, so your commute was a little bit nicer.
Yeah, it's just 1 mile.
And it was crazy because that year I did like 13, 15 interviews because I wanted to get somewhere close and to have a sense of like where to buy a home because I didn't want to buy a home in Lancaster, right? So yeah, it was a crazy journey. And the areas that we looked in varied so much because I didn't know where I was going to end up. It really depended on where I got a job.
Yeah, so to give you guys your perspective, we started looking in Northridge because it was right in the middle between where I worked and where Stephen worked. So we were looking at Northridge, and when we first got there, I just didn't, I've never been to Northridge at that point, and I just saw that it was not the environment that I wanted my kids to live in. And then it was kind of scary, to be honest, when I like got off the freeway. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do is like we just went to a bunch of open houses, or we had a realtor that we were working with, and they would just open the door for us. So like that's how we started. Like we just wanted to see the area, and I remember going to Northridge. I mean, to be fair, it was like kind of a gloomy, dark day,
It
kind
was
of
rainy.
rainy. But Northridge there is like a CSU there, university there. But yeah, it just was a little bit rougher than we would like,
Hmm.
and I think the homes were like around low millions.
Yeah.
And like I said, Northridge was kind of that midpoint where, like, okay, if I'm still working at Lancaster, it's still about 40 miles, but it trimmed like 30 miles. And then for Christine, she would have to commute maybe like I think 15 to 20 miles.
Yeah, but it was
Um,
in LA
it's
traffic going
because,
to the
yeah,
valley, so that would be an hour for me.
yeah. So it would have been like, in a weird way, like I still would have like a 40-minute commute, but then Christine would have an hour commute too.
Yeah, we were also looking into
Yeah.
renting in
Yeah.
Northridge, and then basically the prices were still the same. It was still about $2,000.
Yeah.
So instead of living in Santa Monica, we would be away from the beach, from all the good food, and live in the valley, which we never lived in. And it's just hot during the summer, not much to do. And then it was just different.
Yeah, and then from there, obviously the first city we looked at was Northridge, but once we were like, oh, this is not for us, we looked at other cities nearby, right? So we looked at Granada Hills as well, which was nearby, but kind of similar situation. I think there were like more houses on the hills,
Yes.
and then from there we pivoted all the way to like Koreatown for
Oh,
some
yes.
reason. And I remember we looked at this like townhome. It was like a townhome. It was like newly renovated, and I remember we walked in there, and it was like a rougher demographic.
There was barbed wires on the windows, and
Yeah,
we
like
just didn't know what we were getting into.
it was like barbed wires on the windows, and like I heard the realtor was just like, of course, trying to upsell you the property, like, oh, it's really nice neighbors. But to me, I was like, oh, it's not for me.
Yeah,
K Town's a little bit rougher, more like to me. I would have rather, if I wanted to go to K Town, just rent there versus
right.
like own a home there. But they're just saying like, yeah, the rents could be like $4,000 a month. It's amazing. And I looked up on apartments.com. I was like, wait a second, like you could rent something in K Town for like under $2,000 if you wanted to. Um, great food there, great party environment, but obviously, like long term for like kids and a family,
Yeah,
it's not the
not
most
good to stay
ideal.
there.
So quickly, we're like, well, if we want to live in K Town, obviously, just rent would make the most sense. So after that, we then pivoted to where do we pivot to next?
I think we just stopped actually because
Yeah.
Stephen was still working in Lancaster. And then fast forward a couple more months, and then Stephen got a job offer in LA. So because of that, we were both working in LA, and then we had also the 66 to look into now. And the first place that we wanted to live in the 66 was Monterey Park, Alhambra area. So we started looking into townhouses, and then all the HOA were around like $300, and
So
then
yeah, to add on to that, like the moment I got a job, like basically it felt more stable, right? So like once I took this job, I knew that like, geez, I'm committed to this job because it's tied to where I'm buying a house with Christine, right? So once I got that job, that's when I think really took the home buying process way more seriously. We
yeah.
started looking, like as she mentioned, in Alhambra, Monterey Park, and like there, if you want under $1 million, it's going to be a townhome. And most of these townhomes were like 1980s build, so like they may have been renovated or they may need renovation.
Mhm.
And like I said, most HOAs unfortunately were like 380 to 400 and no amenities, like literally no amenities.
Mhm.
So I remember we looked at a couple homes and we're just like, wow. At least I felt disappointed. I was like, wow, these homes look kind of old, need some work.
Yeah, I wanted something
Yeah.
with an open layout with a kitchen, but none of them really had that. It's just like you walk into the house and then immediately you see like a kitchen and then another like stairs going up. It was just like very narrow and enclosed space. And that's not something I really wanted.
Yeah, like the school districts are great, right, for
Yeah.
those areas,
Good
which is
food.
good food, obviously. Like if you want, Chinese food, Asian food in general, amazing. It's boba everywhere, right? But like I was just like, man, like this house is like old looking. It's gonna need some renovation, and it still was like around $800,000 was kind of the average price we
Yeah,
looked
I mean,
at.
in terms of renovation, we still had needed to put in at least 100K
Yeah, at least
in terms of like
100K.
kitchen, flooring. So with that, that would bring us to 1 million. So it's just like there's not much you can go. There's not much options in terms of the area. So because of that, we started broadening our horizons, and then we looked into Montebello. Stephen
Mhm.
actually found this house.
Yeah. So basically, when we're looking at older homes, something I want to add on to is there's a bidding war as well, right? Like
Right.
you're bidding against each other. Versus if you kind of look at new builds, so we came across a new build community, and at first, kind of slightly turned off by the area in the city, but then once we actually physically saw the area, we are like, oh wow, like this is really nice,
Yeah.
and it felt like a utopia, right? Like
Right.
we're like kind of isolated, it's gated, and it just felt like very different compared to the photos.
Right. The first time I checked out this community, I went with my parents and then they loved it immediately. And they're usually very, very hard to please. So I was really surprised as well. I was like, this is great. It's safe, it's gated, it has great amenities with a pool and a gym. I just saw myself living here.
Yeah, so like that's the distinction, right? Like, and the cost of the home was 900,000, right? So if you kind of did the math, we were looking at townhomes that cost around 800,000,
Plus 100K
plus another
renovation.
100K in renovation, and like once we realized that, we actually started looking at new builds, and actually there was a new build condo community that we were heavily considering in like kind of I think Monterey
Rosemead.
Park.
Rosemead.
Yeah, Rosemead, Monterey Park, I think, but it was like a 2 bedroom, 2 bath condo on like it
Oh,
was a 6 story one,
oh yeah.
and you didn't have your own garage. But we at first we liked it because we just liked the idea of new builds. Like buying a new build is so much easier. You just literally make an offer, and it's first come first serve,
Yeah,
right?
because there's just so many options. You
Yeah,
can choose which floor you wanted, like what kind of layout.
yeah.
You don't have to bid to other people.
You literally choose like what specific condo you want if they have like 10 or 15 available,
Hmm.
right? So like we're just like, oh, we like the idea of a new build, but we didn't like that a 2 bedroom. It's hard to if you have a large family, if you have one kid, a 2 bedroom makes sense. It could work, but the moment you have two kids, it starts to feel kind of tight,
Right.
right? And then you have no garage, so you have to literally, get a wagon or something, put your stuff in that wagon, and then wheel it over to like where you live. So we just thought that it's not as like family friendly.
Especially if you live on the sixth floors, it's a
Yeah,
lot of work just getting your groceries, especially if you go to Costco into your fridge. It was too much work that
yeah.
way.
So we just didn't think it was sustainable. But then once we came across this like newer community in a great area as well, we're just like, oh wow, it's kind of like a hidden gem.
Yeah, we have a
Um,
garage. We have
mhm.
like an open layout kitchen. We have nice amenities, very safe, and that's exactly what we were looking for.
Yep. So once we kind of saw that, I think we saw this community like maybe 3 times. I think Christine went first by herself. And I think Christine went a second time with her parents. And then I think by the time I saw it, it was her third time, right?
Mhm.
And what was nice is they just would show you different like phases and like, oh, like this is where this phase is, and this is the pros and cons of each phase. So I remember it was like February. We came in, and then we weren't expecting to actually buy. To be honest, like we were just checking out the other phases. But once they showed us this phase, we were just like, oh my god, we got to jump on this because it was. I think the sun hits it later in the day, and it has like the greatest view, and it's kind of not as congested compared to other townhomes.
Yeah, we bought in phase four, and there's a total of 8 phases. The later phases are towards the beginning, the entrance, which is like all stacked next to each other. So because of that, we were just like, oh, we wanted something a little bit more hidden, a little quieter.
Yeah, and like you said, because we were the last of phase four, there's not much renovation going on, right? Compared to if we bought in like phase five, six, seven, eight, it is in the front, and it's just still a lot of renovation going on and people moving in, right? So once we saw it, I was just like, wow, we got to jump on this because we wanted a corner lot so that we have a better view. We wanted less walls to share, and then we just really liked the view. So like I
Mhm.
remember it's crazy because like the neighbors, we saw all the houses around us, but then we chose this one, and now we see our current neighbors, and just like, oh, like we had the opportunity to get that house, and it was so anticlimactic. I remember we're just like, all right, well, let's just buy the house. Like let's just
Yeah.
submit the offer. Like you don't have to bid, submit an offer, and then at that point you just have to use whatever lender they recommend to
It was
get.
too easy.
Yeah, it was like
So
too
smooth.
easy, and like I remember the builders gave us like I think $40,000 in credit. I think we negotiated. It was like 30, but we asked for like 40,
Yeah.
and it helped prepare our HOA. Our HOA is what is it like
Five,
580?
five,
So
seven.
it is a lot more than LA. But when we were looking at different towns, the average is about 400 to 500 with no amenities.
Mhm.
But here we pay like 580, close to 600, but we have way more amenities, and it felt way more exclusive, like clubhouse, gym, pool, gated community, right? So it just made
Mhm.
it worth it to pay for the HOA. But yes, like it's crazy. I'm actually I hate paying HOA because I know it goes up, right? But ironically, now I'm living in a community where the HOA is high, right? There's two HOAs in the community. So anything to add?
I think overall, we're just very happy to live in this community. It's in a great location. It's 20 minutes from my workplace, and then for Steven, it's about like 15 miles, but with traffic, it's like an hour. But it works for us. So we're extremely happy to be living in this community with building it. We were able to kind of customize the floors, the stairs, or the staircase, the different colors for the carpet. So we're just very happy to call it home.
Exactly. And like you said, because I got my job, right, stable, we were able to pick this location. And Christine got another new job to make her commute a little bit easier as well.
Mhm.
So now it's like this right in the middle between our jobs, right? Like it's midpoint. Christine doesn't have to go with traffic. Unfortunately, I have to go through traffic. But it's just a good midpoint, a good area. And like you said, we could see ourselves being here like basically
Long
at least
term,
10 years plus, right?
definitely.
And by then, interest rates will hopefully drop so we can refinance. By then, the area is growing. So, and then each phase that comes out, the price goes up and up and up. So, we are building up equity. So, we're pretty happy with that. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're interested in buying multifamily real estate with some guidance, check out the mentorship program. Otherwise, please let us know what questions you have and what topics you want us to discuss. And please share this video with somebody who can find value. Thank you so much. Hope you see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye bye.